This is my dressing room guitar. This
Oh,
is
no
actually
kidding.
one of my favorite guitars in the universe. Play this one for a second. This is probably my favorite playing guitar right now. So if I'm playing guitar all day long, that's what I'm playing.
That's the one.
Yeah. So when I do records, sometimes we'll get with Paul Reed Smith, and they'll send me 12 to 14 different guitars, and I'll record each song with a different guitar, and then a fan can buy this song.
Oh, wow.
That's
that
cool.
recorded that song.
Yep.
When they sent me this batch, I'm like, no, that's mine.
This is going nowhere.
You know, when you look at all the things you've gotten to do, how much was it really hard work, or how much it was just such a labor of love that you never really thought of it as any other way to go?
The hard things to do are photo shoots.
Okay. He's like, interviews.
Flying to Europe to do a week of interviews, you know.
And nothing else, just interview after interview?
Yeah.
It's like a junket? Yeah.
Well, you know, doing an interview every now and then is great, especially when I talk here, you know.
But with nerds. Hey guys, it's Russ and Ryan from AMS here. We're in New Jersey at rainy PNC Bank Arts Center to check out Creed. We got a chance to sit down with Mark Tremonti and talk to him about his extensive amp collection, his PRS guitars, his love of microphones, Frank Sinatra, Eddie Van Halen, and of course, cookies. So we throw around the term the hardest working man in show business all the time, but Tremonti, Alter Bridge, Creed, what am I missing?
Sinatra. Yes.
So how do you get into the headspace when you're writing for all those different projects?
I always have in mind what's coming up, you know. So I know that I'm going in the studio in March with Alter Bridge, so I got to keep Alter Bridge kind of in my mind when I'm writing. But I'm also thinking Creed is going so well right now that people keep asking about new Creed music. So I've got two compartments, you know. So far on this tour, I've written 3 or 4 ideas, and I think one of them just stands out as a Creed song, and 2 or 3 of them sound like Alter Bridge tunes. But they'll just keep on morphing. You know, if I write something that just sounds like I should get on stage and play it with this, you know, Creed at soundcheck, it'll happen.
You got the Tremonti album that's coming out in January of 25.
Yeah, we mixed mastered the Tremonti record, comes out January 9th. That's all ready to go. We've already shot 3 videos for it, you know.
That's crazy.
So that's all ready to go.
First single just landed yesterday.
It's killer.
You know, I wanted to release a different song first, but the powers that be are like, this is the shortest song, it needs to be the single. And I was like, okay. So I always told myself, don't ever write for radio or anything else, just write the best songs, and then you finish the record, it's like, all right, take the shortest song and put it on the radio. I'm like, all right.
It's a great tune. Is that done in your rehearsal space for the video?
No, that video we did in, gosh, where did we fly to? I think we went to St. Louis.
Okay.
JT was the director. I forget his last name, but great director. We shot 3 videos in 3 days. I was kicking and screaming the whole time going into it because I didn't want to do a normal performance video. I wanted to do something more artistic, and he knocked it out of the park. First video we shot was the one you see online. The other one we shot was a video for the opening track on the record, which was where I did a deep dive online and find all these crazy artists that use AI with all this awesome looking stuff. And we created the video for the next single that's coming out. I don't know when, but the next video I'm real happy about as well.
Yeah, the single with the D tune is really cool. Like, is that what tuning are you in?
You know, I think that song's only down a whole step.
Okay.
You know, it's not too bad, maybe even a half step, but it's harmonized. So when that riff happens, we're playing 2 different things. Sounds nice and big and ballsy.
When I heard that riff, you know, it made me think of like, I'm like, you should collaborate one day with like Ian Thornley.
I love Ian.
Because Ian is a monster player. We love his playing. And there's an element in that song. It's like a sliding, like bending, kind of drawing you in, and it's
Kind of like a Jerry Cantrell kind of vibe.
yes, I love it. I love
wrong with that.
You know, it's funny. You guys just mentioned my 2 favorite current songwriters. You know, modern age songwriters, Ian Thornley, Jerry Cantrell. We just did a show with Ian last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I had
because he's on this tour, right? In and out.
We played Toronto, and he played the show. Big Rec played the show. But Big Rec used to play with Creed back in the day, so that's when we became familiar. And,
Really?
Ian and Miles, my singer from Alter Bridge, they're really good friends. So,
It's a lot of talent.
but Ian's turned into I think the world now is realizing how much of an incredible guitar player he is, as well as a songwriter.
It's about time.
But when we were young back in the Creed days, I'd hear him playing in the dressing room, and he was every bit as good back then. And he's just amazing.
I remember, yeah, we were talking about some of the, like, same with Creed, some of the early stuff where it was kind of frowned upon to shred and play a lot of solos. And it must have been nice to get it into a different band for a while and go, look, I want to rip a little bit. I want to shred and have fun with it. That's the point.
Yeah, you know, you spend all these hours playing the instrument and you want to express yourself. And it's at that point, I don't think I could. People are like, oh, you got out of Creed and then all of a sudden you could be the solo guitar player. You spread your wings. Like, I don't know if I could have done those solos when I was back. I was learning to play the guitar along the way. So it wasn't like I could pull off some of the stuff I was doing in Alter Bridge back in those early days. Because I was the worst thing for me as a guitar player is being a songwriter. You know, I hate to say that, but when I'm writing albums, I'm not playing lead stuff. I'm writing vocal melodies. I'm strumming. I'm not focusing on technical abilities. So when it comes to one of the most difficult times when I've just spent 8 months writing a record, putting together, now it's time to do the guitar solo. So I got to snap back into guitar shape. I'm back in guitar shape because I'm on tour. But when I'm in writing mode, that's when you're playing for hours and hours a day goes to writing for hours and hours a day, which is not the same for me. You're playing guitar, yes, but you're not challenging yourself to be a lead guitar player. You're just being a creative player. You know? And
when you're doing the songwriting process, are you typically cutting demos for more or less, you know, everything from drums to bass and beyond, or maybe some?
Yeah, this time I had pretty much our assistant engineer with my producer coming to my place. He set up a rig there. I had Eric and Ryan over, my drummer and guitar player, and we would just, once we had songs arranged, we would record them and sang them, record them. When we went into the studio, we just had demos that sounded great. And our producer's like, wow, this is...
That's the record.
Because it's his guy coming in there to record it. So he lets his guy know exactly how he wants to have these things laid out. So we didn't have to go through pre-production. We didn't have to go through finding our click tracks and recording drums to a click. We didn't have to tempo map our songs. The arrangements were already done. I think every song was pretty much recorded the way we demoed them. And then Elvis comes in and gets the absolute best performance out of you and makes it sound incredible. This record is, I dare say, the best sounding record I've ever had. You know, it's, our producer bought a new board. It's a Wonder Audio board. Funny thing is, I just did this Sinatra record and I did the deep dive on U47s. And I shot out all kinds of a bunch of original U47s. And the one I fell in love with was the Wonder Audio U47.
Okay.
Turns out they make mixing boards too. And it just crushes. It sounds so good.
All digital?
No, I mean, it's an analog board, but it's sounds just incredible. Check it out.
Was Sinatra a U47 guy? Maybe that's a question I should already know. But
well, I'm a 47 guy. On the first Sinatra record, I used the Wonder Audio U47. I also used a Heiserman U47 on there. But this last time I recorded with the Sinatra guys, I did a Christmas record, and I used a Sheffield Labs mic, which is absolutely, I think, the best mic that's ever been made. I've never heard anything better than it. When I recorded the record I just did with Tremonti, my producer, who's hard to impress with gear, was like, this is probably the single most impressive piece of equipment I've ever used in the studio.
Wow.
It's a Sheffield Labs. They didn't make many of them.
You have it under lock and key.
Impossible to find.
Oh, yeah.
I think they made dozens of them, pairs of them. I went to Paul Reed Smith's house and I was telling him about my obsession with mics now. And we went through his collection, played everything he had. And I was like, this mic is a Sheffield mic. And he's like, Mike, let me buy it from him. He's like, nope, can't buy it from me. I forgot what I bought from him. I forget what the mic's called. One of the most famous skinny, long, tall gold mic.
Telefunken or
It's not a Telefunken.
AKG C12?
Could be it. You know, really expensive, old, vintage, badass microphone. And I loved it. That was my second place mic. I'm like, well, let me buy this one, use it in the studio. So I went to the studio, had all the mics there, had my U47, had the Sheffield, had the C12 and all these set up.
That time.
Sheffield crushed everything.
Wow. Really?
Crushed them all. I used it on the Tremonti record. I thought it would only work for the I've got you, the lower stuff.
Yeah. Sure.
But it works for the rock stuff.
And it keepps you on your game, right? Like, I mean, it catches every little nuance.
But not in a bad way. Like back in the day, I bought was it a U87 back in the day? And it was so clear that you could hear every little, everything in there. I was like uncomfortably clear. But this one, it just brings the best out of you. It's like when you speak into it, it just makes you sound better than you are, you know? So I can't wait to actually get, record a record with some of my other guys, with Miles or Scott, and see how they appreciate it.
How they take to it. So when you're, you mentioned Paul, your guitar player in Tremonti, Eric?
Yep.
He uses the NF53. I had noticed in the music video that he was playing
guitar.
No, it looked like an NF53, not the Miles. Not the Miles signature. It was like a white dog hair.
Yeah, he plays a few of the guitar. I think he has a McCarty. I think it might be a white McCarty. He uses Miles's signature guitar. Just all PRS. There's a lot of hand-me-downs from my old Creed rig. He uses I had this tribal single cut that we used to use back in the Creed days, and he plays that live.
Okay.
I never liked the way that one played for some reason. I had the big thick neck on it. This was before I convinced them to make the signature model have the smaller neck on it. But he plays that one.
Cool. I'm a big PRS fanboy myself. And one question I always like to get a kick at, like with people's first time that they've recall seeing a PRS. Do you remember like that first? Maybe it was an artist. Maybe it was a.
I was at Florida State University working at Chili's, right? Working terrible. I was a fry cook and putting myself through college. And then we got paid all this money to get our demos made. All this money back in the day, it was like $800, to get a record made. To us, it was a fortune. And then once we got the song played on radio, I got a job at the guitar shop. I tried to get a job at a guitar shop for so many years. It was always, are you a guitar player? No, you can't work here. We don't want guitar players working at the shop. Finally, they hired me because I'm the guy on the local radio station. And they had PRSs there. They're on the top shelf. Even I, working there, couldn't touch them because they were too expensive at the time. And that was what made me like, I want a PRS. I want to, of course, I eventually got to play it. But then one day we were playing Boston and we got our trailer stolen, our van and our trailer with all of our gear in it. My original Les Paul that I grew up playing, my 40th anniversary Les Paul, my Taylors, all my stuff. But anyways, I got a insurance settlement for like $8,000 or something. So I immediately bought a Paul Reed Smith guitar. And that was my beginning of my relationship with Paul Reed Smith. The problem with that guitar was it was a, I forget what it was, but it was like an artist model of some sort. Like it was green and gold hardware. I think it was called an artist model, but this is the time when there was only Carlos Santana was the only artist they had. When I got it on stage, switches were all in the wrong spots and the tone wasn't quite right. It was a little rounder than I was used to. So I stopped playing it on stage and just played it at home. And then Paul Reed Smith ended up calling me. Jeff Lanahan from Paul Reed Smith said, hey, would you like to play our guitars? And it's like, absolutely, yeah. I love your guitars. Send me a guitar. Same thing. They sent me a McCarty, which is one of my favorite guitars ever. I've written so many songs on it. Love the guitar. Play it on stage, can't do it. Knobs are in the wrong spot. I need to, on the fly, be able to, psh, psh, psh. I'm at home with my guitar, the way it's laid out. So like, all right, well, why don't we send you one with a different layout? They sent it to me. It just didn't sound right. Didn't feel right. Just me being picky. They're like, all right, just design your own guitar and we'll make you a signature model. And at the time, it was only Carlos Santana. So I was blown away. I don't know how old I was, maybe 26 years old. And the best days of my career was being on stage, opening that case, seeing the signature model done. Because I went through a few phases where it was Paul being Paul, doesn't want anybody to, he wanted to be completely his own thing. So it's a single cut that did not want to look like a Les Paul. It looked like a blue whale, had a big head on it and a tiny little thing. I'm like, it's ugly. I don't like it. Set it back. And it kept on going back and forth. The initial contours were really contoured where the pickup, the knobs were sticking way. It was just like, we had to really hone it in with, maybe 6 times before we got the body down. Took a little longer to get the neck worked out. But I just remember that first one, which I have at home, that's maybe been played for an hour period. I don't play it. It's the very first number one.
Yeah. Was that 2001 about?
I'm not sure. Maybe even earlier than that. Yeah. Maybe 2000.
You think about it too. You're probably responsible for getting as many PRS guitars in people's hands you were one of the first SE models that I can think of. The Tremonti one.
And that first SE was amazing. That's still my favorite of the SEs they've made. You know, it might not be as pretty as the other ones, but just that straight black one played the best, I thought.
It was killer. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I don't know how people are going to pay, $4,000 for a USA one when you could get that and you didn't have to do anything to it.
I think it was like $700 or something.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're a notorious amp hound.
Oh yeah.
So, and again, we're talking about all the different projects that you do. Is there one rig you could just go, yeah, I can use it for everything? Or are you always like, I just have so many things?
I'm always morphing. And my guitar tech out here, Scott Davis, he's I'd probably taken years off of his life. Every time we get the rig settled in, I'm like, it can be better. We can keep on improving on it. So no, if you go to my house, I love guitars, obviously, but I'm much more of an amp collector. I get way more. So if I go to a fancy shop, I'm ignoring the guitars and going right to the amplifier. I think as long as you have a nice Stratocaster, a nice Telecaster or two, and a nice single cutaway Les Paul style, my guitar style guitar, and a hollow body, and a couple acoustics, maybe nylon string, and a normal cover.
I love that list got really and a dobro and a mandolin
and a Kaler Pro. No, you can get 6 or 7 guitars. You've covered all the bases, you know. But with amps, man, each one you buy pulls that certain something out of you, you know. So I've got a room at home that just has racks of just amplifiers, and I just like going in there and just looking at them.
So if someone asks you like to explain that obsession, how do you go about it? I mean, for me, it is guitars. I'd rather have a lot of guitars lying around.
It's our wives that ask these questions.
Well, they do, yeah. But amps, that's an expensive and cost, like the space you have to devote to a bunch of amps, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I to say it's like I've never done a drug like heroin, but I would say plugging into just this great amp that brings that feeling out of you. It's just like you plug into a great Dumble, and it's just this awe-inspiring, just warm feeling you get. You know, Dumbles to me are the best amps ever made.
Did you just recently acquire one within the last couple of years?
I have right now. I have 4 Dumbles.
Wow.
Yeah. 4 Dumbles, and I've gone through a bunch of Dumbles.
Yeah.
The thing about Dumbles, it's just like I always say, it's just like pinball machines. Pinball machines are very expensive nowadays. You know, it costs you anywhere from $7,000 to $15,000 to $20,000 for a pinball machine. But if you bought a pinball machine back in the day for $1,400, those things are now worth $10,000. You sell your $1,400. As long as you're buying and selling and trading, you're not spending any more than you ever did.
Sure. How many do you have?
Pinball machines? I have 15, 16 pinball machines.
See, but he's rationalizing it just like we
do. Exactly.
It's so refreshing.
If you bought it for $1,400 back in the day, you could afford that. Now the prices have gone up, but you can just sell the one you bought, and you're not really spending money. You're just trading what you bought in the past.
Well, your wife is behind this door.
Bring her in.
We have had this conversation many times. I'm going to get a purse because you just got a pinball machine. I'm like, did your purse make you money? Because my pinball machine made me money.
Wow.
So my amplifiers, you know, the first Dumble I bought, I won't say how much I bought it for, but I sold it for more than twice what I bought it for.
That's awesome.
Maybe 5 years later. And over the years, I've probably bought and sold 6 or 7 of them, and never lost a penny on one. Mm-hmm. And they're so inspiring.
So what made you narrow it down to the 4 that you've got?
Well, the very first one I ever played was Paul Reed Smith's. He had a 50-watt combo, and I remember he had a show, and all his guitar players got up for a sound check, and he must have had 10 amplifiers on the stage. And I saw a Dumble. I was like, beeline right to it. Plugged it in. Every setting, it just sounded incredible. Something I've never heard before. It did the rock thing, but it also had this incredibly just great lead tone, and just absolutely fell in love with it. That gave me my addiction. So from that moment on, I was just out for it. Paul's like, I promise you I'll give you that one day. Never did.
We kind of did, right? Like the MT100 Channel 2?
Well, no. Well, we tried to dial it in, but never got that amp. I want to hunt down who has it, because that's what gave me my first addiction. Yeah, that made me addicted to it.
The first one's free, right?
Yeah, exactly. But then I bought one from a gentleman in Nashville, and it just wasn't good. It didn't sound good. Mm-hmm. I plugged it in, and I was like, maybe I got to get used to it. And some nights I was like, yeah, I got it sounding pretty decent, but overall it's just too bright and harsh and stiff.
All original?
Yeah. Yeah, all original. It was just one of his, I think it was like serial number 292 or something. It was like a late serial number.
Mm. But didn't he build things specifically for people based on their,
well,
like,
this
there's all
one
these
was
stories.
built for a studio.
Okay.
The studio bought 2, a white one and a black one. I got the black one. So it was built pretty much for a recording studio that would have lots of musicians coming in.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a generalized Dumble.
Got it.
So bought that, realized, I don't know, 6 years later that it just wasn't the right one. I needed to find the right one. I was going through Nashville, ran into Carter's Vintage, and I bought one that sounded amazing in the shop. And this was one that I had a cabinet that it was a head and a cabinet that didn't have, it was like a combo that didn't have the head in it that I was playing it through. And it sounded awesome. We were in the acoustic room and it resonated with all the acoustics. When I got it home, it had way too much low end. I was like, what in the hell? It sounded perfect at Carter's, but then I guess it sounded great in that room. It didn't sound good at my house. So eventually
that one?
Sold that. I bought a 1959 Deluxe modded by Dumble. That's a great little mojo machine. I bought a Bassman that he modded. I forgot what the mod is called, like a Mexican name. I'm not sure. I forget what it is. But anyways, I sold that one. I kept the Deluxe, and then I bought my buddy Gene Sinigliano, who lives in New York. He owned Ultrasound Music, and he's bought and sold probably more Dumbles than anybody. He's like, this is the best sounding 6L6 version of a Dumble I've ever owned. And I've got it back from a guy that I sold it to, bought it back from him for way more than I sold it to him for. I have it. I've got 3 Dumbles right now. When you're in town, if you want to see them, you can see them. So went in town, played that and the other ones, and fell in love with it. Made him an offer that day, bought it from him. Miles actually used that for all his lead tones on our last Ultra Bridge record. Okay. I used it for a lot of the stuff on this new record I just did. Then I bought another Dumble at a swap meet in Orlando. I went to this old school swap meet.
I think a Dumble?
Yeah, I walk into this old, like, tiny little place in Orlando, and I go by this booth, and there's this Dumble on the table, and this guy's like, I go, is that a real Dumble? He's like, yeah. I'm like, there's only one on sale right now on Reverb. It's like $165,000 or something like that, and it's serial number. He's like, yeah, that's this one. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, oh, I don't play guitar. I just buy and sell these things. I'm a lawyer or whatever it is. And he kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, yeah. These are the guys keeping these things out of musicians' hands. They're just trying to make money off of them. So he's like, oh yeah, and there's another Dumble coming later today, number 91. This older gentleman is selling it, and I'm meeting up with him later. So I walk around this thing, and hour later, I run into this other stand, and I see this little brown Dumble and this older gentleman there. I'm like, this wouldn't have to be Dumble 91, right? Yeah. It's like, yes, it is. I'm like, don't sell it to this guy over here. He's not going to play it. He's not a musician. Sell it to me. I'll give you, I forget what it was. I'll give you X amount above the average price going right now, because this is right after Dumble passed away. I know the prices will go up now that he's passed away. I'll give you whatever above the average price right now. And they agreed to it. The guy he was there with ran a guitar shop. He's like, yeah, sell it to Mark. He'll play it. That's one of the best Dumbles I've ever had. Right after I bought it, I went to Joe Bonamassa's show, and he was showing me his onstage collection, and he had Dumble number 92.
Oh, cool.
I was like, wow, you're playing
Siblings.
with one of your favorite ones is 92. One of my favorite ones is number 91. So there must have been something in that
batch.
I know in the serial numbers, I think the secret spot or the best spot is between like 150 and 180 or something like that. I forget exactly what it is, but there's like 30, 40 amps that are like his top ones that you want. And my black one is within there. But then we just could talk about Dumbles.
Go, man. Yeah.
So I love that amp. One of the best clean tones I've ever heard in my life. Absolutely, it's stunning. But then my buddy Brandon, who builds Bluetooth amplifiers, he's a guy that guys will go to have their Dumbles repaired and whatnot. He's like, I've had this Overdrive Deluxe on my desk for over 10 years. The gentleman who owned Wildwood guitars, he owned like some of the best Dumbles ever. And this was one of his. And I've been waiting to get a period correct piece for this thing. And I finally got it. And I bet you if you made him an offer, he'd sell it to you because it's been here for 10 years. I don't know how much he really cares about it anymore. So I made him an offer. We negotiated.
You had played it already?
I had not played it, but Brandon, my buddy, he sent me video. So okay. Like, wow, it sounds great. And at that point, I was like, it's just a cool historical piece. He's like, I think this is the closest you'll ever get to a prototype for the Overdrive Special. This was built in 1974, has all the same guts as Overdrive Special. It just doesn't have a foot switchable control. It's the only difference. It's like this could be when he was experimenting to make the Overdrive Special. Same year, right before Lindley got his first Dumble, Overdrive Special #1. So as he's shipping it, I'm excited about it, but I'm not as excited as I'm getting an Overdrive Special. You know, I'm like, Overdrive Specials, I lose sleep over. I can't wait to, plug it in. So I get the Overdrive Deluxe in, I'm unboxing it, plug it in, and it's the best sounding Dumble I've ever heard. Everybody in my band's like, you know what? I'm not my drummer's like, I'm not I didn't really get the other Dumbles, why they're so much better than all these other amps, but I hear it. Like, this is
post 92 or 91.
This is a 74. This
No, your
Deluxe.
serial number. This is post.
Oh, this one's, I don't even think there is a serial
No,
number.
I mean, you got it after your 91.
This is the newest one I got.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the very newest one I got. And it's all over my new record. Anything that's not super high blown, high gain, that's more in the middle somewhere, it's all the lush stuff is all that Dumble. And the lead tone is incredible. I remember I was the next time Joe Bonamassa and Josh Smith were coming through town, I was talking to Josh. I'm like, you got to come over and check out these amps, man. And we had this day all planned out. We were going to just amp nerd out all day long. And I don't have a lot of friends that can gauge how good an amp is at that level. These ones, I have like heavy hard rock guys that will be like, yeah, it's cool. Where's the pit bull? Or where's the, I just want to hear the diesel heavy stuff. Exactly. Right, yeah. But I had these guys that know amps through and through, and I caught the damn flu the day before they're coming to town. I was throwing up. Oh. And I called them like, man, I don't want to get you guys sick. I was looking forward to it. But
rain day.
Yeah.
No, you did the right thing. We're actually going to go see Joe in next month, I think, in Albany.
Month, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll bring it up to him if you want.
yeah. I was dying for them to hear the amps.
But do they stay in the studio? You don't take
my amps are at home. Yeah.
So, but you're a 2-amp guy, though, right? I mean,
on tour, I'm a 2-amp guy. I've always been a believer in. I went all of the last year and a half just using my MT100 on stage, and it sounded great. But I wanted when I was at home, I wanted to go back to experimenting with partnering it with something else. So I found this amp company, Synergy Amps. They're doing. They partnered with all these different companies to make all the
very familiar
inserts.
Yeah.
And
we know Avi well. Yeah, he's
they're
boutique.
Great, man. They are. So when I got home, I hooked up my MT100, partnered it with the Synergy. They sent me all the modules. I went one by one with it all. I fell in love with the SLO for the high gain stuff.
That's great.
And then they made the SLO2, which is now what I'm using. Mm-hmm. The TDLX, which is pretty much a twin kind of thing. It sounds with the MT100 together in my studio at home sounds incredible. Absolutely incredible.
What's your balance there when you
just
blend them?
Even amounts of
relatively 50-50 between the two.
Evil volume. But so what I do is I take my dirty channel of the MT100 and I mix it with the SLO, and then I take the overdriven channel and I mix it with the Morgan AC, and then I take the clean channel and I mix it with the Tweed to TDLX, which is, I don't think it's a Tweed, it's the Twin Deluxe. So
hey, hello. I just wondered if we're going to need you in a minute to do a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
6:30?
Whatever you need.
We're talking amps. I like talking amps. So.
All right. Thank you so much. Yeah. Really appreciate it.
So live is a Synergy mixed with the MT100. Those are my combinations. It's I'm also right now developing a pedal company on the side. I'm trying to
I was literally going to ask him that.
I didn't know if we were allowed to ask about it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be called Tremonti Audio Company.
Snappy. I like that.
Yeah, and so far we've developed a few pedals. I haven't signed off on any of them yet. I want to be really picky about it. I'm going to drive them absolutely crazy. They'll probably quit before we get them out. They'll probably quit. They're like, we've spent $5 million.
Good
we haven't approved anything. We've worked on a overdrive pedal that's very promising. We've worked on a Univibe that's great. We've worked on a tremolo that's awesome.
Original circuits or roughly
all
based
original,
off of
all original stuff. The toughest one is the wah. That's the reason why I started this, because Morley got bought by a new company, and when they did, they took away all the artist models except for Steve Vai's. Mm-hmm. So for a long time, I had people going like, dude, you got on the website, your stuff's not even on there anymore. So I was like, well, I had so much going on at the time, it didn't really bother me too much until maybe a year later when people are still saying the same thing. So at that point, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to start my own pedal company.
Why not?
I'm just going to do that. And then after I get a call from the new owner, nice as can be. He's like, yeah, Mark, we want to relaunch the pedal with bigger and better than ever. And this now I'm like, well, I'm starting to work on my own stuff. I'm sorry, but you take 2 years off of it being on sale. I got to make a move, and I love gear. So I want to dive in and do this. So, I'm working with a bunch of great guys. I don't know if you guys know who Sean Tubbs is.
Of course.
But Sean is one of the guys that plays the pedals and kind of before I get them. So he's one of my favorite
Great
guitar
player.
players in the world.
He has great ear too. I love his videos.
Oh, absolutely. So working with great guys. But once we get it, I want to release 3 pedals. Once I get 3 done, I'll release 3 at one time.
Got it.
And then I'll do maybe one every 6 months or every year. I want to keep the price point under $200 tops. Unless I do like a special, to high-end pedal.
Sure.
But most of the stuff I use is not great. I don't use real tape delay or anything. I just whatever's normal, overdrive, wah pedal. I want to do an octave pedal, but that to me has been the most difficult thing to do because of the parts. I guess you can't find the parts in the DAW and all whatever you got to put all into those pedals to make them work.
Yeah, they get all the other pedal manufacturers. They scoop them up when those things like the Shark chips and all that do certain things. But I was reading something about Eric Johnson recently. Was saying there's almost too many options. There's too much gear. There's too much stuff. And obviously you're someone who will go, I'll take a really great guitar, plug it into an unbelievable amp. So I would think pedals to you are more just that finishing touch, that kind of.
Yeah, and I don't use them that much, to be honest with you. The ones I use every night would be my wah pedal, my overdrive pedal, and a delay pedal. Those are my 3 top ones. Everything else is just fun. If I get a pedal, like when they sent me the tremolo, I said I want a tremolo that does the effect where you can shut it off when it's I want it to cut off, almost like the old cutoff switches on a kill switch. So when the tremolo sets, you can set it at a certain speed and it'll go dot, 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 and you can tap temp with. So imagine at the end of a song, you just have this single one-trick pony of a pedal that you can step on. You go da 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 da, that kind of thing, and then you can switch the switch over, and then it does your normal tremolo things. But I love that one effect. When I was at home, as soon as I got the pedal, I wrote a song using the pedal. Because I was using these cool, extremely tremoloed effects where it cuts out the signal and. I'm like, that's what a pedal's about. If you can spend $150, $200 on a pedal and it pulls a song out of you, it's something.
Yeah.
Money well spent.
Well, since we're talking pedals, I got one question. I'm going to beat you to it.
All right, go.
So we did a AMS Game of Tones. It's a YouTube special we did with Paul was on our last episode.
Yeah.
Your song with Miles, Blackbird,
for
Alter Bridge, was the song that they gave us, and they showed the solo, and they wanted us to compete against each other to figure out the effects that were being used on that track. Now, I wanted to use desperately a wah for that solo. Can you say once and for all definitively if there was a wah on that solo?
Yeah.
Paul adamantly told me there was no wah on that track whatsoever.
I'd have to listen to it again. I know I did one record where I deliberately didn't use a wah the whole time.
Okay.
Because I love using a wah. And,
You're almost as bad as Kirk Hammett, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, it's there's just something when I step on a wah, the notes pop. You know, I just love it. But I don't know if I don't think that was the record I would have done that on. No, that's not, because I remember the song Buried Alive is on that record. It goes wah, wah, wah. I can hear the wah in my head.
Yeah.
So that part I do in Blackbird towards the end, where it's all the single string picking stuff. If I'm doing that, I'm stepping on a wah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
you heard it here.
All right, fair. So you got your answer.
Yes, I got mine. You can go
make
with
fun of Paul.
your last
So
question.
before we wrap, because we know you got to go, and I like doing this with anybody that we can talk to that actually got to meet Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
You guys obviously opened for them in, what was it, 98?
I can't remember exactly when, but
it was a long time ago.
But we do open for them a few times.
Any good story? Anything that you want to tell? Like, just tell me something. I'm an Eddie.
Oh,
come on.
I got tons of Eddie stories.
Anything really crazy or
way crazy?
Come on,
crazy Eddie stories.
Lock that door.
So one of the coolest ones is we were we're opening up for them at the Palace in Detroit, and he's just kind of walking around and comes over to us, introduce himself. He's like, "Who's the guitar player?" I go, He's like, come here.
Oh God.
So he walks me in. He had this drape over his whole guitar world, and looking at all his amps and his guitars and stuff. He's like, yeah, check out this my new 5150. And I think he was trying to get other guitar players to play his amp. So he's like, I'll send you one of these. Give me your address and this and that. And I'm like, man, I love your guitars. The Wolfgangs, they play like butter. He's like, what color you like? I go, black. He goes, all right. So we're in Madison Square Garden having we're talking about some stressful thing in the dressing room. Somebody's knocking on the door. We're like, oh, they'll go away. We're having this discussion. Kept on knocking. Finally, it's Eddie Van Halen. He comes walking. He's like, sorry, guy. He brings in this guitar, breaks it out, taps on it. He's like, it feels good. What do you think? And gives me this guitar. And then blew me away. And then after the show, Wolfgang and Valerie are out there, and they're walking backstage by hundreds of reporters, hundreds of fans everywhere underneath Madison Square Garden. He sees me, walks through all these people. He's like, hey, I forgot to tell you, I take one of the springs out of the back, and I do this and I do that. He said, gives me a kiss on the cheek. He's like, all right, great playing, and walks off. I'm like, holy shit. Hey, Van Halen. And then years later, Wolfgang Van Halen's in my band for 2 records, right? And before that, Wolfie was like, I was in LA. Wolfie's like, hey, man, you want to come to Van Halen practice tomorrow? Like, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, drop
like,
everything.
hell yeah, of course. So he picks me up in the morning, and we drive through the hills. I don't forget what that street's called in LA, where it's all through the hills. Yeah. We pull into Eddie's house, awesome house, and pull up, and there's a detached kind of garage from the house, and that's 5150 studio. We go in there, and walk in, and there's a mixing board here, amps behind here, and then there's a plexiglass wall, and then there's Alex in the other room. The guys show up, and the big, the badass Audi sports cars, and
I bet.
They start playing the new record. I'm sitting in the room with them playing the new record. I'm in between Wolfie and Eddie. And Alex is in the other room. And the song would end, and I'd be like, yeah, Wolfie, that was sick. That chordal thing you did, and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, how'd you like my line? Was my line good?
The inferiority complex.
Oh, my God, of course.
Relax.
So I got to sit in a room while they performed. And I remember doing sound checks when I was in the Tremonti band, and looking up, and I'm playing shows, and Eddie's just sitting there smiling down the railing, looking down. I remember warming up for a show with Alter Bridge. He came out to an Alter Bridge show, and I was sitting there warming up, was doing some legato stuff, and I feel this presence behind me. He goes, you don't pick much, do you? I go, I'm warming up my left hand. And then it was Eddie, and him and Valerie were at the show, and because Wolfgang was sitting in with us on the drums.
He plays everything, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. So I got so I've got Eddie's guitar at home, and gotten to meet. He's hung out. I remember going on our tour bus. You're just walking around, jump on your bus, not thinking anything of it, and Eddie Van Halen's sitting there on your bus. You're like, oh, hey. And he was always very, 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 very nice. Always very nice, Yeah.
That's nice to hear, too.
That's a good story.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked.
Absolutely.
I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about it.
No, I mean, it's been, when he passed, it was devastating.
Oh, God, yeah. Awful. So what's next? What are we going to leave with here?
Next, we tour for another 30 shows on this run. I have October off, which I'll be writing Alter Bridge stuff, probably getting with the guys, putting Alter Bridge music together. Go back on tour November, December with Creed. I'll be writing Alter Bridge and Creed stuff all along the way. I've got 4 or 5 Sinatra shows with the big band jazz thing in December. All that's for charity, supporting the National Down Syndrome Society and the Smile with Stella Tremonti Clinic in Orlando, which is the first lifespan clinic for Down syndrome patients in the Southeast, which is my proudest thing I've ever been a part of. And then January, February, I go to Europe with Tremonti to promote the new record. The new Tremonti record comes out January 9th. March, we go in the studio with Alter Bridge, record the next Alter Bridge record.
Slow year.
Next summer, we're waiting on the packages to go out with Tremonti and or Creed or whatever else happens next summer. So we've planned out to that far at this point.
And in the middle, he's buying Dumbles, collecting pinball machines, and writing books.
Yeah.
I just want to know what you swap for a Dumble at a swap meet. You don't have to say it on camera. We could talk about
Cash.
There's a good swap.
I didn't swap anything. He just had it there. I paid him for it. And
Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. All the
Yeah.
best with the rest of the tour.
thank you guys very much. So I learned that from the protein pedal.
Okay.
That, you know, you guys,
Sure.
That
Yeah, the protein pedal's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is kind of akin to the kind of like the protein setup, but more clonish.
All right. That's beautiful. I love that look with these old school knobs and everything.
Yeah,
It's cool.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it away with that. Looks a little
too clonish. Yeah.
We don't want to.
Call it the horse meat. Oh wait, never mind.
Yeah, we don't want people to think we're ripping off.
Yeah, this is the Duelist. Yeah, it's a great pedal, man.
Right? He bought this, and I was playing it the other day, and I
Plus, it looks cool as hell.
I need one now.
That's a serious pad, dude. Yeah.
You knew he'd want it.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Of course.
That's the prototype of the tremolo.
Oh, cool. I like that.
I was like, dude, make the pedals look like that. I think
It looks like
cool.
on Fairfield circuits or something like those pedals.
Those
Those are the different waves.
And this
So
is the one that you were saying it's got like the kill switch vibe.
Yeah, so if you have it on all the way this way, I believe.
Okay.
One of them is like the smoothest, one of them's a little choppier, and one of them's just dead.
I can use an expression pedal with it, or
This one's got, well, we talked about it, but I don't know if I want to do that because I've
Okay.
never used that.
got it.
But it's got the tap tempo on there.
Okay. I love
This is a
that
great
kind
one.
of steel look.
No silent switches? I know that's like a popular thing.
I think we're going to stick with that.
Yeah, that's got more of the.
Yeah. I don't know.
Don't make them second guess
Oh,
it
no,
again.
no, no,
They're
no,
going to
no,
kill them already.
But the biggest thing, whenever I push back on the tones and stuff, they're like, you know what? The hardest thing in the pedal company is come up with the aesthetics.
Yeah,
It is.
Yeah. It wanted to look cool on the board.
It looks cool.
Oh, it looks great.
Thank you for the tour.
Yeah, man. I feel like we've already gotten you in trouble once.
Oh, I love talking gear.
Thanks so much. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Mark. Big thanks to Mark Tremonti for sitting down with us today and for PRS putting this all together. Be sure to like and subscribe. And for all your musical gear needs, be sure to head over to AmericanMusical.com.